There's time for everything. A time to make promises and a time to assess scorecard. What would you want to be remembered for? Promises fulfilled or broken promises? President Buhari's spokesperson, Femi Adesina, recently informed Nigerians that Buhari is leaving Nigeria better than he met it. Buhari is leaving, oh. I beg, I want to ask, was this statement made against the backdrop of the comfort he's enjoying in the presidential villa or against the promises Buhari made in 2015? Anyway, don't blame them. They forget so soon that manifestos are the oil with which the yam of governance is eaten and must not be adulterated. But since they don't adulterate them and don't forget, let's remind additional of Buhari's promises in 2015. Buhari promised to ban political government officials from going abroad for medical treatment. But he himself and most of his ministers, including the president-elect, they japa regularly for medical tourism every now and then. He promised to introduce national gender policy and offer 35% appointment to women. But anyway, instead of 35%, they offer 35 women political appointment. After all, 35, not 35. Boy, it's a scam. Creation of 3 million jobs per annum. At least by 4 years, it would have been 12 million jobs. And in 8 years, 24 million jobs, including employment scheme where 740,000 graduates across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. Sorry, I forgot they created jobs like kidnapping, banditry, herdsmen invasion of Benue villages. So, after all, Femi might be right. Quite disheartening though. But unemployment in Nigeria today is at about 30% or more from the 18% they met it. Go and verify from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Apologies to Peter Obi. The revival of our steel industry at Jakuta and Alaja was at least another promise. But you know they only revive the steel industry in their APC constitution. They also promised creation of social welfare program where a minimum of 5,000 naira will be paid to 25 million poorest of the poor and most vulnerable in Nigeria, including our unemployed graduates. Even though we remember that the VP, Professor Yomi Oshibanjo, they share money for market, CBN gave loan to farmers. Don't ask me if they are paid back. And government has borrowed another $800 million to share, $800 million to share to Nigeria. I will leave you, the listeners, to score them on this one, whether they fulfill the promise. How about the promise of building one of the fastest growing economy in the world with a real GDP growth average of 10% per annum? Well, unfortunately, the country today is one of the poorest countries in the world with our take-home pay unable to take anybody home. And prices of goods and services are outside the reach of the common man. Anyway, what do detractors like me know? After all, Femi Adesina say Nigeria is better. They also promised to increase our electricity generation, transmission and distribution to at least 20,000 megawatts within 4 years and an increment of 50,000 megawatts within 8 years with a view to achieving 24 hours uninterrupted supply. Anyway, I don't talk anything about this one. But it is obvious that Buhari scammed unsuspecting voters because till now, our total installed capacity is 7,500 megawatts and we have not been able to distribute more than 5,000 megawatts. Better well, Bros Femi say, we are better off. We hope so. I can't even believe that this government had promised to upgrade all federal-owned hospitals to world-class facilities and increase the number of medical doctors from 19 to 1,000 persons to at least 50 to 1,000 persons, and not only jackpotting for medical tourism as the hospitals are worse off, but they are also struggling to hold down the few medical doctors from jackpotting as a result of poor condition of service, abysmal remuneration, and lack of facility. But really, it's not funny. You couldn't increase the numbers you met, yet you are still unable to keep the few ones available. And yet, Femi believes we are ungrateful for saying we are not better off. Anyway, Goodluck Jonathan will be laughing by now. We are all crying. Buhari is leaving. Oh. How about the promises of creating 2 million homeowners in their first year in office and then subsequent 1 million homeowners annually? If you ask about promises of making Naira stable at the international market, they will tell you it wasn't Buhari that made the promise, but the party. But they made the Naira at 199 to $1 on the May 25th, 2015. Today, it is hovering between 740 and 745. and our CBN governor is busy chasing Aboki FS or hoarding Naira note. Which juju push us into this one chance? Oh, sorry. Bros Femo, no vessel. We are better off. On serious bunch. The unkept promises, plentiful, including amending the constitution to remove immunity for governors and president, providing full disclosure to the media of all government contracts above 100 million naira prior to award and during implementation, creation of commodity board to ensure best practices for selected crops. At least I know that one. I listened to Oshibanjo. Consolidation of INEC to reduce and possibly eliminate electoral malpractices. Even INEC themselves now, they're confused whether they have improved, progress, or retrogress. I'm really trying hard to look at the positive of this government that made Pastor Femi Adesina claim that Buhari has left Nigeria better than he met it. And then I remembered that they passed the Petroleum Industry Act. Even though the implementation is topsy-turvy, they promised to eradicate Boko Haram, though, and bring back our guests. But 9 years after, some of our guests are still in captivity, even though our military men are trying daily to suppress and defeat Boko Haram and the general security with the best they can. I also remember that they built the second Niger bridge and built more railway than the previous government. But the only thing, they say the railway now became so unsafe that it turned into a kidnapping den. May God rest the soul of Nigerians that died, both the military and civilians, for no fault of theirs but the fact that they are Nigerians. I will therefore advocate, as the swearing-in draw closer, the incoming government should not bother to take us on another voyage of rhetorics and promises, and nobody should request me to set agenda for anybody. Let them just start from the party, not just start from the party manifestos, but from the unkept promises of APC and Buhari government that Nigerians subscribed to pre-2015, but ended up as weapon of mass deceit by APC and Buhari. Once they do that, at least we'll start on a good trajectory. That's all for today. Until next week, when we come your way, keep the faith by kindly checking out our various social media platforms shown on your screen for previous episodes. Remember, you can't force peace. Just ensure we all have equal right and justice, and we all have peace. See you next week.
See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
And wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us the sure, verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the go-to app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other Paper Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, the truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Bademasi. It appears Nigeria is witnessing a resurgence of insecurity after a cooling off period, especially before and during the election period. Just weeks after the general elections, the country has witnessed a number of violent attacks and kidnappings in a number of states in the country. In Benue State, north-central Nigeria, no fewer than 100 persons have been killed in attacks on several communities blamed on armed headers. So far, 18 out of the 23 local government areas of the state has witnessed or have witnessed one form of attack or the other in recent times. The Benue State government says about 5,138 people have been killed in violent attacks in the state within 8 years. This is what the governor now said when he visited the Benue State Teaching Hospital after the recent attack.
The president must go beyond sympathy message and condolence messages, which are greatly appreciated. Within the space of 1 week, we're having more than 100 people killed. And if that continues, it means we shall be completely annihilated from this country. And this is not right. And so the president has charged the security agencies to stand up to their responsibilities. They've been doing so much, that I know. I know the challenges they have, funding, equipment. They are grossly inadequate to cover all the areas, but something has to be done. That was why we brought the idea of community volunteer guards. If the federal government will also accept to arm this or take them over and train them and arm them, I think it will do a lot of good.
In all, we have received 38. Of this number, 20 of them are women, or females, better put, ranging from age between 2 to 60. 10 of them are also children, most of them 2, 3, 6 years old, and we have only about 7 males. Again, we observe the nature of the injuries. If you have gone through, you notice that a good number of them that survived and reached here were attacked with intent to kill. We reached that conclusion with ease because if you look at the nature of the injuries, they targeted their head and neck region.
Now, in the northwest of the country, particularly in Zamfara and Katsina states, over 80 persons were reportedly abducted when armed bandits raided some communities, now remote communities in both states over a week ago. All of these incidents would appear to suggest some kind of resurgence of insecurity in the country. But let's delve into the issue further. I'm now being joined on the show by Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is the Managing Director of Beacon Consulting Limited, a security consulting firm based in Abuja. Dr. Adamu, thank you very much for joining us on the program. It's quite worrisome what we are seeing at the moment. Is this some kind of resurgence in insecurity across the country?
Yes, DG, it is a serious issue. There is a common thread between all the incidents that have occurred in the last few weeks. And you're right. As you know, I run a consultancy and we keep a database of these incidents. So between the 4th and the 5th week of March, as well as the 1st and 2nd weeks of April, we've seen an increase in the security incidents that we've been monitoring. So clearly what it meant is that during the elections, of course, the presidential elections on February 25th and the governorship elections are held on March 18th, it appeared there was adequate security deployment in almost all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, and that limited the capacity and the ability of the non-state armed groups, and that's the common thread in all the incidents. It limited their ability to move around and to carry out the kind of attacks that sadly Nigeria was used to before the elections. Now, after the elections, it appeared that a significant number of those deployments were pulled back, and so the spaces opened up for these non-state actors to continue their activities. Another possibility is the cashless policy. You recall that starting from 31st of January, the government introduced the cashless policy, which was highly controversial. And at a point, the government had to reverse its steps. And so it has now opened up the coffers, as it were. And now there is more cash in circulation than there were between January 31st and, let's say, the 3rd and week of March 2023. So that too may have contributed specifically to kidnap for ransom incidents that we're seeing in parts of Katsina and Zamfara State, as well as possibly Kaduna and Niger State. So it's a combination of several factors, but the chief among them is this teen deployment of security forces in rural areas that has opened up spaces for these armed non-state actors to become more versatile and carry out the kind of attacks they've been carrying out recently.
All right. At the moment, we have a president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course, he did make a very big issue out of security when he campaigned for the position. And of course, you must have seen his manifesto. He dwelt so much now on security, saying that he's going to deal with insecurity. He's going to ensure that there's security across the country. But now we're having some kind of resurgence. If you were to set the agenda for him now, what exactly do you think should be his priority when it comes to tackling insecurity in this country?
So sadly, it's a little bit too late to set agenda in the sense that all the political parties put out manifestos, and we want to assume that it was on the basis of the manifestos that we voted for them. So looking at the APC, it released what it called Renewed Hope. And it was personally signed by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as well as Sir Kashim Shettima. And that, for me, is what we can hold them to account on. What are the promises made in that Renewed Hope document? Number one, carry on with the good aspects of the security management policies that were handled by the President Buhari administration. Number two, introduce new philosophies and technology into the security space. Number three, enhance aerial surveillance. And then the other components would reform of the police, enhanced collaboration and cooperation, closing up the gap using both human and to an extent technology, especially within the ungoverned spaces. So all of these are very good aspects and they are commendable. What remains is how are they going to implement this? Sadly, it was missing in that document, the renewed hope document. So we're hoping that as part of the transition process going on at the moment, and of course behind the scenes, there is a lot of conversations now going on regarding how to implement all of these promises that were made.
Well, there's no question at all that the president-elect has his work cut out when he comes into office. Dealing with the security situation in this country will no doubt demand so much from him. But then he said he's equal to the task. We'll just wait and see how he goes about dealing with the insecurity challenge in the country. Dr. Kabir Adamu, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us on the program. Well, we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, brain drain. Just why are Nigerian doctors leaving the country? That's what we'll be discussing next. Stay with us, don't go away. Welcome back. Now, brain drain is a big issue in Nigeria's health sector at the moment, considering the high number of medical professionals who are migrating to Western countries in search of better working conditions. This migration has led to a severe shortage of doctors and nurses in hospitals across Nigeria. At the moment, doctors to patient ratio in the country stands at 1 doctor to 5,000 patients. 1 doctor to 5,000 patients. Now, the World Health Organization recommended ratio is 1 doctor to 600 patients. Now, that tells you how bad the situation is in Nigeria. It's literally the same story across sub-Saharan Africa. Yet, richer countries continue to poach medical personnel from African countries like Nigeria. To address the problem, the House of Representatives is currently working on a bill to amend the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria Act to stop the migration of Nigerian-trained medical practitioners. The proposed bill, which has passed a second reading, is to prevent Nigeria-trained medical or dental practitioners from being granted full licenses until they have worked for a minimum of 5 years in the country, as part of measures to address brain drain in the sector. According to Ganu Johnson, who is a sponsor of the bill, it is only fair for medical practitioners who enjoy taxpayer subsidies on their training to give back to society. Well, the issue, of course, as I said, is generating a lot of controversy. Naturally, some individuals and groups have expressed their displeasure over the bill, saying it's an infringement on the fundamental human rights of doctors in the country. But global health experts have expressed serious worry over the issue, saying if developed countries continue to poach medical workers from poorer countries, the situation could trigger a more serious health crisis in less developed countries. In fact, some health experts have described the poaching as a crime. Perhaps heeding the warning, the United Kingdom has placed Nigeria and some other developing countries on the red list of countries that should not be actively targeted for recruitment by health and social care employers. But what difference will this make? Joining me to discuss this worrisome development is Dr. Toluwani Onrugbeja, who is a Senior Registrar, Department of Orthopedics and Trauma, Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, LASUT. Also joining us is a medical practitioner, Dr. Tuyi Mebaodu. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Dr. Onrugbeja. Let's talk about this bill. What do you make of it?
The bill is one that identifies a problem, a crucial problem. However, it's not well thought out, because the preferred solution here does not solve the problem in any way. And if anything, it may actually produce the exact opposite of what is intended to achieve. Right? I would not want to go into analyzing the specifics yet, but generally speaking, the bill is ill thought of. It's tantamount to slavery, modern day slavery, and some of us perceive it as a direct target at medical practitioners. Because talking about subsidized education, we all enjoyed subsidized education. Every university graduate in Nigeria that went through a public system has enjoyed this same subsidy. If anything, medical practitioners pay the most in most universities. Our school fees are higher than the average university graduate. So why then are we being targeted here? Other professionals are also within the country. Why are you targeting medical practitioners?
Question of, do you think this is a question of medical personnel now being targeted, or that the medical profession now is being targeted, or that this is just a moral issue, and that whether we like it or not, the role doctors play in society is very important? Yes, you could argue that they may not be well appreciated here, but it also raises a moral and ethical issue if our doctors are just pushed the way they are being pushed now. At the end of the day, we're left with nothing.
Okay, definitely, doctors are being pushed. Our IT personnel are being pushed. Nurses are being pushed. Lawyers are being pushed. Professionals all around the country are being pushed. You should give them something to keep them here. You don't then put a barricade and say you cannot go out. That is not how to treat people who you think are that important.
But in this case, they are not saying you cannot go out. They are saying, look, at least do 5 years here before you go out.
Let's then spread it around and let's see if it works.
All right. I'll come back to you. There's still a problem with your network. I hope we're able to sort it out. But let me come to you, Dr. Mebanwadu. You've been a medical practitioner for several years now. You practice here, and give me your own take on this bill.
Expose the depth of poverty of thinking in governance, the depth of poverty of thinking in politics and public space. You used one word, poaching. No. It's the developing countries themselves that are pushing their doctors and experts away from the country. They are the ones sending them away. They are the ones creating conditions that become so terrible for them to work in this part of the world, even when they so desire to do that. And then it's just like at the same time trying to beat a child and telling the child never to cry. Why do I say this? First and foremost, Ghanaian Solomon came up and said that he wants doctors to stay in Nigeria for 5 years. And he gave just one reason, because he felt that they have been subsidized in the payment of their training. I have younger ones that are studying medicine. I also, have even daughter that is started to become a doctor. I know what it costs. I'm asking the question, where is the subsidy coming from?
No, but we can't deny the fact that there's subsidy. There's subsidy in education in this country.
Hold on. Now, I have, apart from studying in Nigeria, I've studied elsewhere, okay? My postgraduate was done in Sweden, okay? In Uppsala University, number 10 in Europe, and still in the same medicine. I didn't pay a dime.
You probably got a scholarship.
No. Just hold on. So because when they trade lies and want to make it the national discourse and make it the truth, it becomes so difficult. They have to go and sit down and do a comparative analysis, okay, of how doctors are trained elsewhere. The model they bring up to us is the model of US, where, of course, you have to look for money and they keep increasing everything about education. But we have countries, even including Cuba. Okay, are you listening to me? Even including Cuba, that is having one of the best set of doctors and had to actually donate doctors to Italy when they had crisis during the COVID problem. And they are being trained free of charge, everybody. So now the big question in this country is this. First and foremost, you are having a ratio of about one doctor to, you said 5,000
patients.
Some say 8,000. And you are missing, and then you have a gap, okay, of about 12,000 doctors you have to train every year. And your capacity to train is just 3,000 doctors. That's the maximum. The maximum capacity you can train in Nigeria is 3,000. You have repeated strikes, lecturer not satisfied, everywhere not equipped. Now, let me also surprise you. When these young doctors finished, go ask Dr. Orugbeja. These young doctors, they are still looking around, influences, trying to push their parents, everybody for influences for them to do housemanship. Even those that are finishing, you are not placing them in housemanship. Those that want to do postgraduate study, there's no space to train them, no enough space to train them. Now, these doctors will finish, they will stay 1, 2, 3 years. Try hustling for housemanship, hustling for it. Some even up to 5 years, hustling for training to become consultants. And then now you want them to stay here and be looking for what, Abi? So this guy will now have to sit down and start writing exams. So let us dwell on the factor that the developing countries are pushing their health workers away. It's not poaching. I mean, don't.
If you ask me, I would say that's semantics. Whether we like it or not, it's poaching anyway.
No,
because it's poaching. I mean, it's poaching. But what would you say about even some of these global health experts who have said, look, this is a crime, and that if it continues, the world might be facing a very serious health crisis in the future? Because, look, already you have a terrible situation in less developed countries. We're not talking about Nigeria alone here. I mean, the statistics are just the same across sub-Saharan Africa. So how I understand this problem, the problem of African countries not taking care of good care of their medical personnel now. But how do you address this ethical and moral issue of doctors leaving places where they are badly needed and going to places where, whether we like it or not, they are not most needed, if you like?
No, you see, in 2007, in one of the courses I attended in Harvard, we're looking at how to strengthen, human resources for health. And this problem came up 2007 now. This problem came up, and we have to actually start looking at what are the issues. Even America itself is having shortage of health practitioners. America is having shortage. In fact, if you look at the country that is leading in terms of ratio of health doctors to, you have to go to Asia countries, before you see that high number. Even America is at number 3, okay? Now, the question is that, what do we do? And then it became a moral issue, like Randy pointed out during the discussion, that should doctors now leave, or should they be recruiting actively? Now, the thing became so manifest due to COVID, and
yes,
you have to come out and say, look, listen, that we're going to do a code of conduct for health workforce support and safeguard list. They have to actually start creating health worker support and safeguard list, okay? And then in that list, they have 3 codes, either amber color, red color, or green, as the case may be.
Dr. Onwuegbeja, let me ask you this. How do you think this problem can be resolved? Because whether we like it or not, this is a problem. Our doctors are leaving. How do we stop this brain drain from happening?
All right, thank you. That's a good question. Same question that is plaguing every stakeholder in the country, in Nigeria. I think the answer is simple. This is a question of the pull and the push, right? There are factors that are pulling doctors to stay back here. The fact that we are patriotic, we are trained here, we want to see how people do better, we have our families here. Then our welfare would also keep us here. What are the push? Insecurity, unemployment, poor welfareism. Those are the things pushing us out of the system. The same thing applies on the other side. You have the pull and the push as well, right? So we have factors out there that are encouraging doctors to opt for going out of the country. Better welfare package, better job satisfaction, better working conditions. So why can't we, what says we can't have the same thing here? Right? So why can't we improve the working conditions, and not just for doctors, for all health workers, right? Why can't we improve the working conditions? Why can't we invest in the health sector? Why can't we have better working facilities in our hospitals? Why can't we have better job satisfaction? Why can't we create the avenue for this job satisfaction? Look at the hospitals, very crowded. You have patients complaining. You go home knowing that you could have done better for your patients. At the end of the day, you can't feel satisfied when doing the same job. What about your career progression? You see, young graduates can't find slots for housemanship. They struggle to get that done. I can remember many of my colleagues who had to go to several states to write exams. just to get a slot for housemanship. Same thing NYC. In fact, I had to be pushed out of NYC camp. I remember my year, right? Because my license was not ready yet, and also there's something I applied for several months prior to youth service call-up. You know, the things you find that your career progression is hampered at every step. Things that should be seamless, right? Plus for residency is another issue, right? It's now easier because so many doctors are out there and places are opening up for residency, but it's still not easy for many people, right? So if we can have these three things I've highlighted, okay, better welfare for health workers in general, career progressions. You know, people, some of my colleagues have not even gotten their license for this year, and this is why in April already, right? So things that can be done seamlessly. We find out that we have to struggle at every step, right? So about those of us in a residency training program, you know, very little support. We have to invest a lot to get these things, you know, to get our training done, and we hustle for to get patients. The home of us are in surgery department, also to get patients up in the theater because we leave the system to it. Some of them will not find themselves in the theater, and we need all these things for our training to keep going. So we find that the system is individually driven, right? The system is not encouraging, the system is not working. And when you have such a situation, it is discouraging for the average health worker. It's discouraging for the average doctor. You see your colleagues out there. I was talking to some of my colleagues in the UK in residency training, and they said they don't spend a dime on their training. Any pound spent is refunded. And most of them don't even down to their logos, they don't have to buy anything. Right? They are encouraged to get into training, they are encouraged to practice. And when you see that, and you look at your home country, and the decision is easy for most of us. Why don't you just go to where you are better appreciated and you have better working conditions, you have better working,
all right.
So the solution here is for our people to sit down and see how we can. We will definitely not be able to get a level playing ground, right? Because we're dealing with world-developed countries. But can we bridge the gap a bit so that the other factors that would encourage people to stay here would then come in, and we find that the more people will stay here. In fact, other people that are out there might even be encouraged to come back to the country.
Let me also ask you this. For these developed countries now, what do you think they can also do? Because apart from what we can do, what do you think they can also do? Because we've had suggestions of, look, some of the aids that are coming to Africa, why not use that, for instance, to fund doctors' training? Why not use that to probably help to pay doctors' salaries and all of that? Why not use some of those aids now to improve doctors' welfare? I mean, some of these aids now that are coming from developed world. So what role do you think they also have to play in this?
All right. Definitely, we can play a role of mentorship, right? You can look up to them, learn from their system, and import their ideas around here, right? It's really up to us to step up our game. But I'll tell you what, the other speaker mentioned the fact that even the United States and the United Kingdom are still suffering from shortage of doctors, right? You mentioned earlier the recommended ratio of doctor to patient, right? And last I checked, Netherlands is the closest to the ideal ratio. You get to some states and you find out that that's two specialists in particular in the whole state, right? And maybe about 80 doctors, that is medical officers in the whole state. Clearly, the ratio is far beyond. I will put it as it's considering other states aside from Lagos State and other figures that are put around to be close to 1 doctor to 20,000 patients. That is absurd, right? You now have other countries trying to meet up with the recommended ratio of one doctor to 500 patients. You wouldn't expect them to stop recruiting doctors because some countries cannot manage theirs, right? So everyone has to, in a way, fend for him or herself. The United Kingdom is doing very well when it comes to training of doctors. I'm aware that there's a program, for example, called MTI, where they help to upgrade the training of medical doctors And so the program runs for about a year, and then they ensure that at the end of the program, you return to your native country, right? So your programs, you have courses where they come down here to partner with us or to train us, and we have this partnership. That's, I think, we can foster better relationship when it comes to partnership with some of these countries and what they have over there. You know, they can give us equipment to improve our facilities, partnerships, and this can be worked on, right? But I don't see them sending down doctors to come and help us work here or stopping immigration of doctors over to their country, because they are also trying to meet up their targets.
Yes.
Right. So on the areas of welfareism, we have to sort ourselves. Right. They're not going to pay our doctor's salaries, they're not going to pay our nurse's salaries on our behalf. We have to sort ourselves in this regard.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Toluani Orungbeja, who is a senior registrar at the Department of Orthopedics at Lagos State University. Hello. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. I think that's where we'll just have to leave it. Earlier, we had Dr. Tuyume Bamadu. Unfortunately, we've not been able to reconnect with him. We'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. The truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Now, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has reiterated its advice to Nigeria to step up efforts to bring more people into the tax net and increase taxes as a means of generating revenue to cut borrowing. Speaking on tax reforms required, the IMF said emphasis should be on improving tax compliance and tax brackets, citing Nigeria's tax revenues as one of the lowest in the world. Now, these suggestions emerge from sidelines of the ongoing IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, D.C. In its latest fiscal monitor released on Thursday, the financial agency also restated the need for Nigeria to phase out its controversial petrol subsidy and redirect such funding to targeted subsidies on critical development drivers like health and education. According to the Debt Management Office, the country's debt profile is in excess of 42 trillion naira, with the government planning to borrow more to meet its 2023 budget obligations. Joining me to discuss this further now is Segun Sokoton, who is a principal partner, Woodridge and Scott Consulting. Thank you very much, Mr. Sokoton, for joining us on the program. Not the first time IMF would be advising, giving this kind of advice now, especially when it comes to tax. What do you make of this latest advice now coming from that global financial body?
Well, thanks for having me, and greetings to all Nigerians. Look, like you say, you know, the IMF has been at this for a while, has always been advocating for the same general policy initiatives, or if you like, economic ideology, which typically tends towards the free market ideology, where they're saying, look, stop subsidies for petroleum and increase taxes. And of course, reduce borrowing in this case now. So yeah, I think the IMF has a very good point, especially with regards to our tax revenue challenge. You know, so we always say when we look at the Nigerian budget that the budget appears perhaps small, especially when you do it on a per capita basis. But I think that beyond the size of the budget, we need to look at the revenue question, the challenge that the federal government of Nigeria has faced for as long as I can remember, is that we are simply not generating enough revenues as a country, so that definitely needs critical attention. The IMF is spot on with regards to how to go about that. So we need to be talking about increasing our tax rates on the one hand, but in a very carefully articulated and carefully targeted way, such that you do not stifle growth and development, considering the fact that Nigeria is burdened with a very a heavy poverty population, a high population of people living below the poverty line. So we need to increase our tax rates in a very targeted and careful way. We need to increase very critically the tax net, and I think this is where our government have failed consistently over the years. To increase the tax net is not really as difficult as one might think, but
the question is, if it's not as difficult, why have we not been able to do it? Because not quite long ago, we heard when the Minister of Finance at some point said, look, I think at the onset of this administration that just about 6 million Nigerians pay tax. I understand that number has gone up, but not so significantly. It's still very low, considered among the lowest even in Africa. So why is it so difficult for us to do that?
Well, first of all, to put some context to that, that fact you just raised now about the size of our tax net, and maybe very closely related, the revenue, the size of our revenue, the tax revenue of our Nigerian government. Just like the IMF report says, in Africa, you'll be shocked to find that Nigeria, I think only one country is lower than Nigeria in terms of the tax to GDP ratio. Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio is 3.6%. Lower than countries like Togo, lower than countries like even the DR Congo that is at war, lower than, like I said, it's one of the lowest in Africa, one of the lowest in the world, the fourth lowest in the world. And for a country with a population of 200 million plus, reputed to have well over 12 million registered SMEs, you find that this number is atrocious. And so now, to address the question of why it is so, I think it's very closely related to our lack of data as a country. So we do not have a very, very well unified and well-run identity data. We do not have a very well-run business identity data as well. So, the ease of doing business conversation that we've had, for quite a while now, is a question that needs to be looked at. We need to find a way to capture officially the small businesses that are operating in this country. We have millions and millions and millions of people that are running, businesses on a very small scale, 50,000 to 100,000 naira in turnover, maybe per day, that are completely below the radar. Those people need to be brought into the tax net and taxed in a very careful way that will not stifle their growth, that will not affect their revenues significantly. If we do this, our tax to GDP ratio can be doubled very easily. We're almost at the bottom. So achieving a tax to GDP ratio of say 10% or 15% in the next 2 to 3 years is actually a very reasonable target. But it will take some very well articulated policy initiatives from the government.
Now, you did talk about raising the rate and of course, expanding the tax net. Some people have argued that rather than raise rate, maybe the government should just concentrate on expanding the tax net. That because as at the moment, since you do not have enough people paying tax, why not get more people to pay tax first before you now begin to talk about raising the rate? I'm just wondering, which should come first?
Yeah, you're right, especially when you do look at the fact that our poverty challenge, the fact that you have 133 million people living in multidimensional poverty, and if you look beyond multidimensional poverty, you probably have some people that you still add to that number. However, it's not. I don't think it would be enough to increase the tax net, because if it were that easy, especially for our governments and their notorious inefficiency, notorious perhaps incompetence, then they would have done it. So I think, yes, we must raise the tax rates, but it has to be carefully targeted. And again, you have to wonder who the people are that are crafting our fiscal policies. So for example, raising tax rates with regards to luxury goods will be one very easy win. Raising tax rates with regards to excise duties, where you're taxing things that people really don't need, to survive on a daily basis, will be another very quick win. So we can raise tax rates. We can look at capital gains tax, for example, as another area where we can carefully, everything must be carefully done so you don't affect growth and you don't stifle development. But tax rates can be raised. And because you will be targeting the upper income class, both in terms of individuals and large corporates, you can actually generate a significant volume of additional revenue based on increasing tax rates. It will be a quick win and a low-hanging fruit. The more difficult one is increasing the tax net. So yes, it might sound like it's better to increase the tax net, but because this is tied directly to availability of data and registration of businesses, capturing of business activities, and all of that, then it will take a bit more time to achieve than just carefully targeting tax rates at specific sectors and specific players within the economy.
I understand you perfectly. Let's talk about the issue of subsidy coming up once again. It's not the first time we would get this advice from the IMF asking us to remove subsidy. The government has said it's going to do that by June, probably before then, before this government leaves. It appears everything is in place to get the subsidy removed, even though the refineries, as some would say, are not working yet. But the way it's looking, it's beginning to look like the next government, this is going to be something that the next government will have to decide how it should deal with it. Now, what do you think about this whole issue about subsidy removal?
Look, again, Deji, we have been on this subsidy thing for as long as I can remember. And the most recent significant effort towards the removal of subsidy happened in 2012. And you remember the Occupy Nigeria protests. Yes. Was wide-ranging, and happened all over the country. The mantra then of people in opposition to subsidy removal was, do not kill subsidies, kill the corruption that is within the subsidy system. And I think that the argument has not changed. At that time, the then Minister of Finance and the central bank governor promised that within 3 years of subsidy removal at that time, that they would have, I think they said 4 additional greenfield refineries, in addition to the 4 existing government refineries. That was 12 years ago. 12 years. As we speak now, we do not have 1 single additional refinery from government, and we only have that one by the private operator that is about to take off. So you have to ask yourself, we do need to take the subsidies out, but why have we not addressed the fundamental issues that must precede removal of subsidy? Local production, very, very critical. If we are not producing petroleum products locally, removal of subsidy entirely will kill the economy. It will kill the economy. Operators in that sector have said that when subsidy goes, that we'll be talking of pump prices of maybe between 750 to 800 naira. That's a 400% increase over what we have now. And I tell you, a lot of people will simply not be able to operate anymore. Cars will have to be parked at home, and you might not even be able to take buses because transportation costs will go up. So the government has spoken about
what do you think? What do you think then? Sorry to interject. So what do you think then should happen?
No
because
problem.
Look, at the moment we're doing about, is it more than 6 trillion per annum on subsidy?
Per annum.
And that the figure is likely to go up because consumption level is going up. The price of crude is also going up. I'm just wondering, it's plain that this is not sustainable. So how do we deal with this? How does the government, because you don't remove it, I'm just wondering where the government will get the money to pay.
Look, it's very simple. For me, it's very simple. However, I know that for the guys in government, it might not be so simple, because a lot of political will and sincerity will be required. Before you take out the subsidy, you must produce PMS locally. It's a must. If you do not do that, taking the subsidies will only make things worse. I can guarantee you that. And you will see June is just around the corner. When the subsidies go, if the government actually has the courage to do it, you'll see that the country will, simply go into a crisis, and the policy will be reversed. So it's not the way to go. What the government needs to do might not be simple, but it has to be done. One, we must reduce the cost of governance. We must reduce the cost of governance as a matter of priority and as a matter of urgency. Two, we must increase revenue. So again, this is where the advice from the IMF comes into play. There are low-hanging fruits for the government that if they implement, you can send the Supplementary Finance Act, for example, to the National Assembly, and by June, you could increase certain taxes, and that might possibly increase the government revenues, let's say, just hypothetically speaking, by 500 billion naira. That shaves off a portion of the 3.36 trillion subsidy for the half year. So there are a lot of other things, measures like this, that can be taken to increase revenues so that you can accommodate the subsidies in the short term. If you do not deal with this and you take the subsidies out, DG, I think the government, let's not forget that this is a government, we're going to be talking about an administration that is just starting under very controversial, circumstances where legitimacy is even being called to question and all of that. You do not want to add this type of spark to that already very potentially explosive situation. So I would strongly caution the government to tread softly on the subsidy removal issue, look at the tax revenue issue, look at how to significantly boost revenues, in the next 6 months, so that we can accommodate those subsidy bills for the short term. I'm really
struggling to see where the revenue will come from.
The subsidy system, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really struggling to see where that revenue will come from to shave off, just as you said, half year, over 3 trillion in petrol subsidy. What do you think of this $800 million facility now that we've just received from the World Bank? Of course, the government has said it's going to deploy that as palliatives now to soften the effect of subsidy removal. You don't think that will also make a difference?
I'm sorry, it will make absolutely zero difference, for a simple reason. If you just do the numbers are very easy to do. The government has already said this amount will go directly, to the 50 million most vulnerable on their social vulnerability register. 50 million people sharing $800 million, DG. It comes to just above 7,000 naira per head, one-time payment. How is this a palliative? This does not address the significant loss of purchasing power, loss of the revenue to the pocket of the average Nigerian that this would mean. This would not address the significant increase in cost of living that this would mean. Once you take the subsidies out, transportation costs will go up, food prices will go up, rent, will go up. Everything will go up significantly immediately. It's going to be an immediate response, So 7,000 naira to 50 million people does absolutely nothing. If the government wants to talk about palliatives, we definitely will not be talking of $800 million. We'll be talking in the region of several billions, maybe 10 billion, maybe 20 billion, just picking off the top of my head. And we'll be talking about very carefully designed palliative measures that will deal with things like public transportation, that will deal with things like agriculture, and in boosting of productivity and getting farm produce, as cheap as possible to the marketplaces and stuff like that. Not sharing, a conditional cash transfer scheme that will just be a one-time thing. It will not solve the problem. So this 800 million for me, $800 million is a non-starter.
The Dangote refinery is expected to come into operation soon, probably before June. And we also understand that at least one of the refineries that the government is fixing to might come into operation. You don't think this refinery is coming into operation now could help make the difference and enable the removal of this subsidy?
If Dangote comes on stream, then yes, we'll be talking. Because Dangote refinery, if memory serves me well, I think their production capacity is about 600 barrels per day, 600,000 barrels per day, pardon me, which should just about cover our local consumption needs. The local refineries, our 4 local government-owned refineries have been under turnaround maintenance for about 2 years now, and a cumulative amount of about $4.5 billion US have been spent. They were supposed to have come on stream as at March this year. They have missed that deadline, and from all indications, they are nowhere near commencement of production, perhaps except for one, just like you said. So let's assume that Dangote comes on stream, and maybe one of our local refineries also come on stream, and we're able to produce the volume of locally required PMS as required. Then removing the subsidy can become a conversation that we can look at, because if you are producing locally, then the pump price of PMS will probably not be anywhere near what the marketers are talking about now, and it might be more sustainable. But that is a huge condition, and let's not also forget that when Dangote refinery comes on stream, they are not going to go to full capacity immediately. It's going to take a couple of months, maybe a year, before they hit full capacity. So it's still a situation in flux that you can't plan this type of very socially disruptive policy on at the moment.
Well, and just by the way, just by way of information, the Dangote refinery actually has capacity to do 650,000 barrels of oil per day. So it's really massive. Mr. Segun Shekuta, thank you very much for coming on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, that's how much we can take on the show today or this week. We thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
When we think about peacekeeping, it often seems like peacekeeping missions are failing. But if we looked systematically across the record, most of the time, peacekeeping works. What I want to do today is to explain how peacekeepers do this. We have 16 peer-reviewed studies right now that all show the same thing. Peacekeepers save lives. They reduce the likelihood that civil wars will recur. They also help to achieve peace agreements. Where there's a promise of peacekeepers, we are more likely to see a peace agreement, and peace agreements that stick. If we look at the completed missions since the end of the Cold War, 2/3 of the time, peacekeepers have been successful at implementing their mandates and departing. That's not to say that in all of those cases, everything is perfect in the countries, but it is to say that they're no longer at war. This idea of using troops from lots of different countries, not to fight and win wars, but to help to keep the peace, was born during the peace negotiations in the Middle East in 1948. This idea was an innovation in human history. One of the main creators of UN peacekeeping is Dr. Ralph Bunche. Ralph Bunche was an American diplomat. For his work at the United Nations, he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1950. He and others came up with this idea of peacekeeping, that what troops would do is they would deploy impartially, so they would not take sides. They would deploy with the consent of the belligerents, so the belligerents would actually ask peacekeepers to help them implement peace agreements. Namibia is a country that has experienced tremendous hardship. It's had multiple colonial rulers. It's had a genocide. It's been victim of regional war, of civil war. But surprisingly, Namibia has not fallen victim to this tremendously difficult history. At the end of the Cold War, there was a complex and highly innovative UN peacekeeping mission, 40% women, and the main form of power they exercised was persuasion. Peacekeepers were there to help reform the political system. Nobody had ever voted in an election before. Peacekeepers were helping to inform citizens of their rights, of what it means to elect their own leaders.
We are very proud. This is an important moment for us, but a historic moment for the Namibian people. That for the first time in 105 years, they are able to sit down, their leaders are able to sit down together and deliberate on the future of their country.
In the complex missions in civil wars, peacekeepers are not only monitoring ceasefire lines, they are also helping to rebuild the basic institutions of the state. They're helping to demobilize troops. They help reform judicial systems, economic systems, so that when people have disputes, they don't have to resort to violence to resolve them. We know that there is a problem of sexual exploitation and abuse in peacekeeping. The UN has been taking measures to prevent peacekeepers from committing acts of sexual violence. Some people have been fired. Entire battalions have been sent home. We now have mechanisms to make sure that victims feel safe to report peacekeeper sexual abuse and exploitation. If we look at Lebanon as another example, the primary form of power that peacekeepers exercise and continue to exercise today is inducement. On one side of the border, we have the Israeli Defense Forces. On the other side of the blue line, we have Hezbollah and other armed actors. And in the midst of all this, we have thousands of UN peacekeepers.
I love my job. I have passion for mine action. One reason is to give confidence back to the community, the landowners, the stakeholders that yes, indeed, this area has been cleared. And if I can save one life, that means I succeeded.
UN peacekeepers help to keep the peace, not because anyone fears them, but they do see the advantage of having UN peacekeepers inducing people to move toward peace. I've seen myself peacekeepers in action. For example, in southern Lebanon, we often see peacekeepers patrolling on foot. They walk around the local communities. They visit the markets. They talk to people. They'll talk to the imam. They'll talk to other local leaders. They'll set up a medical clinic or provide dentistry services. They also provide a lot of employment in southern Lebanon. If we look systematically across the cases, peacekeepers are helping people in their everyday lives move from a situation where there's war and violent conflict to a situation where there's more peace.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
Update at the moment. Amid the many attacks and killings in Benue State, the presidency says President Muhammadu Buhari is not to be blamed for the spate of killings in Benue State. The state Wednesday, Garba Shehu, the presidential spokesman, described Samuel Otom, the state governor, as incompetent in the face of rising insecurity in his state. Shehu said Buhari had taken steps to address the deteriorating situation in Benue, but his efforts blatantly obstructed by Otom. Minister of Information Lai Mohammed has accused Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, of failing to correct Dati Baba Ahmed, his running mate, over his controversial comment. On March 22, Dati said Nigeria has no president-elect, despite the Independent National Electoral Commission announcing Bola of the All Progressives Congress, APC, as the winner of the election. Speaking with State House correspondent on Wednesday, Mohammed said nobody has the right to call for an insurrection in the country. Meanwhile, Peter, the presidential candidate of the party, has asked his supporters to remain calm and show restraint in the face of problems. In a statement on Wednesday, Obi said recent events in Nigeria, including political development in Adamawa State, underline the importance of adhering to of patriotic Nigerian. He remains committed to serving the people and achieving a greater Nigeria. The CDC has an additional updated COVID-19 vaccines who are older than 65 or have compromised immune systems, while doing away with the original monovalent vaccines. According to the CDC data, about 23 million elderly Americans are eligible for the new booster. By the only 42.6% of this age group have gotten the first booster. In business, the Liquefied Natural Gas Limited has revealed that it's currently not meeting its gas export obligations to customers. The major gas exporter added that it can also not sign new long-term gas export contracts. It, however, pointed out that this was basically due to the grave level of insecurity around gas pipelines, wanting vandalism of gas infrastructure, which had crumbled the export of gas. In Brazil, the head of the Institutional Security Bureau has resigned on Wednesday after the disclosure of videos of him at the scene of the January 8 attacks on the capital, Brasilia. General Marco Diaz submitted his resignation after CNN Brazil broadcast images from security cameras showing him at the Planalto Palace, one of the federal buildings ransacked by protesters earlier this year. The protesters were seeking to restore the defeated former President Jair Bolsonaro to power just days after he left office. In sports, the United States and Mexico have bid to co-host the 2027 Women's World Cup. The football federations from the two countries announced on Wednesday. U.S. Soccer and the Mexican Football Federation announced their plans 1 month before a May 19 deadline set by FIFA for hopeful host nations to formally submit their bids. If successful, the tournament will take place 1 year after the 2026 Men's World Cup in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. That's all on the newsroom at this time. Thank you for watching.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Nominated as the chairman of craftsmanship by the college management in 2018. And what is craftsmanship? Craftsmanship is sourcing for grants for the development of the college. And so our first outing, we want to create awareness among the staffs on what is craftsmanship, and therefore invited 2 speakers. Professor Idachapa from Confident University and Dr. Dabasaki from Ford Foundation. Along the line, he told us that they don't give grants and that they have specific area, and that is area of art. For years, you know, those in the art, in the School of Art, they have been dreaming of having something like this, but it is a matter of money. There's no money backing, nothing. So, but when he was now asking us, he talked to us about the policy, said, okay, we'll look into that. He said, okay, so if you are coming because they are interested in art, why don't we join it with an exhibition on sexual harassment? He said, oh, that's all right. But he now told us that that one will not fetch us much. That, okay, the college, since inception of the college, 1947, we have Department of Art. Later, it metamorphoses into School of Art. Do we have a collection center for all the arts? We said no. He said, well, what if you have a mini museum? I said, okay, that's a great idea. And now asked us to go and write proposal. So we left that place. So we rub mind, we write, we sent to him, did some correction, he sent it back to us. But along the line, we found out that we cannot do it alone because we are science-based. So we need somebody that is fast in art. And that was how Dr. Rimolade came in. And the 3 of us, we wrote the proposal, he helped us fine-tune it, and that was how we get the grant of $100,000 for this project. But like I said, it is not this project alone. So 3 projects. This is the major one. Then we have the exhibition and we have the policy. So on the 25th of November this year, that is when we launched the 3.
Initially, we were just looking at a program where we address sexual harassment in the college. But by extension, we were able to get a museum out of the whole project. And the museum was launched on the 25th of November 2020.
What I could start with is that we were dealing with an abandoned space, and we had to deal with a lot of forces of the elements, which obviously we won this far. The fight continues, and our museum is in the basement space. The basement space takes more than half of the lower part of the building, so it's a large, very large space. The purpose of the space in itself, aside from the display space that you already have been through, the museum actually has 3 components, where we have the display space for the works that we've put up, and then we also have a research and repository section. This section is supposed to deal with future research. A lot of writing, of course, is going to start happening, and keeping a log of information. We've been here, the school has been here for such a long time, and it has so many relationships with so many artists in the city, and we want to begin to document them. So it becomes a space where anyone that is looking for information, primary information, not just things that you find online, things that these artists probably would keep or lose, like how you would go through Dali's foundation now and find notebooks and things. Those are the kind of things that the museum is going to gather for research purposes. We're starting to work towards having our conservatory and preservation section. It's a restoration section, which works perfectly for us because our faculty has already for several years been running programs on methods and materials, and under methods and materials there's a section for preservation and conservation of art. So it's not a full-fledged course here. It's not even a full-fledged course anywhere close to us. So hopefully it would be filling a huge gap, not just for our community, but for artists and art collectors around us. We hope it becomes a service point moving forward.
Very happy about this because, like you have rightly said, that I've been here for a decade. Yeah, you see, we have Yusuf Gilo Gallery, and coming now to have Yaba Art Museum is very, very good. And we have to thank God for the people that sponsor the Ford Foundation for that, for this achievement. We thank God. And you see, this Yaba Art Museum is the first in all higher institutions in Nigeria, the first and in the higher institutions in Nigeria. As we all know, Yaba Art School is still the best. So we are coming again as the best to produce the largest art museum in any higher institution in this country.
For years, those in the School of Art, they have been dreaming of sexual harassment. We said, that's all right. But they now told us that one will not fetch us much. That, okay, the college, since inception of the college, 1947, we have Department of Art. Later, it metamorphoses into the School of Art. Do we have a collection center for all the arts? We said no. Said, well, what if you have a mini museum? Said, okay, that's a great idea. And now asked us to go and write proposal. So we left that place. So we rub mind, we write, we sent to him. He did some correction, he sent it back to us. But along the line, we found out that we cannot do it alone because we are science-based. So we need somebody that is fast in art. And that was how Dr. Rimolade came in. And the three of us, we wrote the proposal, he helped us fine-tune it, and that was how we get the grant of $100,000 for this project. But like I said, it is not this project alone. So 3 projects. This is the major one. Then we have the exhibition and we have the policy. So on the 25th of November this year, that is when we launch.
In this part of the world, when it comes to art school, I think Yaba Art School has been on for over 70 years, and that's quite a record. And with that, which means that her seeds are all over the place globally, right? So when it comes to adding to the content of what we have in here, in fact, we're just starting, right? Because we have a lot of people, alumni outside there that are willing, to actually have donate to this particular, museum, right? And so, like I told you earlier on, constantly, we'll be having this, enriching the collection. So because what you, like I told you, what we have, you know, some of, students' works, lecturers, as well as supporters out there, right? If there's anything we are aiming at, it's, you know, because we know what is happening outside there, and this is what we are ready to give locally. Now, come to the artifacts that are out there. You know, why do we travel out there to see those works? It's because of the way they've been packaged, and that is where, because you have a lot of, you know, information about those things, those works, where they are, and when you see some of the promotions about them, you want to see them, right? So if there's anything, there's a question you ask whether we are ready for it. I want to say here in Yaba College of Technology, we are even ready, right? In the sense that the kind of space we have, the kind of packaging we are ready to give works in our collection, certainly it will compare favorably with what you have outside there. Because the fear, as far as I'm concerned, regarding our artifacts out there is it's because, you know, people troop out there to look at them because of the way they've been presented, the way they've been packaged, right? And if such works are, you know, eventually repatriated, how are we sure that we want to, because what they've done, that has added value to them. Once they bring it out there, if we are not careful, right, knowing the Nigerian thing, we might decide that we might discover that those works will lose their value, right? So it's now up, the onus is on us to see what we can do to actually up the game regarding packaging, adding value to that. And I want to tell you, people want to, wherever they are, they want to come down here.